shocker. Imagine my surprise. Just imagine my surprise when Uncle Casey found out that the WNBA is struggling to maintain their ratings without Caitlin Clark. To make matters worse, and this is something I have definitely noticed in the last 3 or 4 weeks, especially since the All-Star game.
The WNBA is collapsing in real time. A catastrophic drop in viewership has just exposed the league's biggest secret. Its supposed historic growth was never about the league at all. It was an illusion built entirely on one player. And now that Caitlin Clark is on the sidelines, the entire house of cards is falling apart, revealing a deep-seated crisis that has network executives and advertisers in a full-blown panic. This isn't just a slump, it's an emergency, and the numbers are terrifying.
And that problem is Caitlin Clark not playing in WNBA games. Now, what all does this affect? The ratings are plummeting. Guys, there's ratings for a couple of these games that are eye-poppingly bad. We're talking about down in unrivaled territory.
It all started with a golden ticket. This season, the WNBA didn't just find a star, it found a magic formula for printing viewers Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. That was it. That was their billion-dollar matchup. The league didn't need marketing geniuses in a boardroom, they just needed to put these two rivals on the same court and watch the money roll in. This wasn't just a game, it was the continuation of a fiery college rivalry, a clash of personalities and playing styles that the media couldn't get enough of. Their first meeting as pros was a full-blown cultural event. It pulled in a massive 2.7 million average viewers on ABC, peaking at over 3 million, a number the league hadn't seen in decades. It was the perfect storm of Clark's on-court drama, a controversial foul that had the internet ablaze, and a thrilling game. The league had found its cash cow, and they were ready to milk it for all it was worth, scheduling 5 of these matchups in a single season.
Be struggling to maintain interest. Now, in fairness to the dump, the ratings I'm about to share with you guys, they're not bad. Matter of fact, some of them are actually good, at least when compared to what this dump used to draw, which was nothing. But the reason I think the WNBA is in trouble has less to do with these ratings and more to do with what I think is coming.
But even before the unthinkable happened, the shiny exterior was starting to dull. The initial explosion of interest was unsustainable without a compelling story for the rest of the league. The second Clark-Reese meeting, while still strong, saw the audience dip to 1.92 million viewers. By the third showdown, the number had fallen again to just 1.5 million. Let's be clear, that's over 1 million people, a full 40% of the peak audience, who tuned in for the premiere and decided not to come back for the third installment. The novelty was wearing off. The league's one-trick pony was already showing signs of fatigue, and the casual fans who had flocked to see the new phenom weren't sticking around for the encore. This slow bleed was a deeply worrying trend, a sign that the foundation was already unstable. What happened next would turn that small leak into a catastrophic flood.
Regular season. And the craziest thing about this last groin injury with Caitlin Clark is how it's been covered. The day after she had the groin injury, she was listed as day-to-day. And then a couple weeks after that, then she was listed to being out indefinitely. Now, ESPN had August 12th as the circled return date for Caitlin Clark to get back onto the court. And just yesterday, she was listed as a game time decision for today's game against the Dallas Wings. And then after practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, like, no, Caitlin Clark hasn't even been practicing. So they changed it from a game time decision to her being out.
And then the one thing the WNBA could not afford happened. Caitlin Clark went down with a groin injury, with both her and Angel Reese out for their latest scheduled matchup. The league's golden ticket was suddenly worthless paper. The result was a ratings bloodbath. The game didn't even crack 1.4 million viewers. It cratered at a shocking 1.3 million. In just a few short months, the league's premier event had lost more than half of its peak audience. The Caitlin Clark stimulus package had officially been withdrawn, and the rest of the league was left brutally exposed. Games without her struggle to even exist on the national radar. A recent matchup between the Connecticut Sun and the Seattle Storm pulled in a pathetic 180,000 viewers. The Atlanta Dream versus the Phoenix Mercury, an even worse 160,000. To put that in perspective, that's fewer viewers than some local high school football games draw. These aren't growth numbers, these are life support numbers.
Place, and I get it to a certain extent. The fans, the media does not need to know every little thing that's going on with Caitlin Clark's injuries, especially a star player like that. We will never know all the information, nor should we know all the information, and that's actually good for Caitlin. It protects her for when she does come back on the court. She can't be targeted. Teams can't use a certain injury or ailment against her if people don't really know what is going on. But the reporting of her timeline in general, there has been no rhyme or reason to what has been shared about it. To put her as a game time decision for today's game, and then Coach Stephanie White basically coming out and saying she has done no practicing with the team, that's crazy. And I brought it up in my video yesterday.
With their ratings in a complete freefall and panic setting in, the league and the Indiana Fever appeared to pull a trick straight from the desperation playbook. Clark's injury status became a bizarre and suspicious mystery. First, she was listed as day-to-day, then, weeks later, with no clear updates, her status was changed to out indefinitely. But just hours before a nationally televised game against the Dallas Wings, a miraculous update appeared. Clark was suddenly a game-time decision. Fans, media, and networks got excited. Was she about to make a heroic return? It seemed to be a total sham. The team's own coach came out hours later and casually admitted Clark hadn't even been practicing with the team. It looked like they dangled a fake return in front of everyone, a cynical, calculated ploy to trick people into tuning in, hoping to squeeze a few more drops of viewership out of her name before admitting the truth. It was a move that reeks of desperation and shatters the trust of the very fans they need to win over.
Throw her back in the mix when all of these teams are at peak condition, and we already know what happens when Caitlin Clark gets back out on the court. Teams play defense on her differently. They play extra physical with her. There's all of these different factors that come into play. That's why I'm sort of leaning to the point of maybe Caitlin should be out for the rest of the season. Maybe this season is just done for her. Maybe it doesn't make sense for her to come back into the mix if the Fever aren't contenders. Are the Fever contenders at this point? I'm just not so sure. Do you risk another injury that can again compound and turn into something else down the line?
But this injury wasn't just a random accident or a stroke of bad luck. There is a strong argument to be made that it was an inevitability, an injury by design, created by the league's own negligence. From her very first game, the WNBA allowed its biggest star to be treated like a human punching bag. She took harder hits than most NFL wide receivers, yet received fewer foul calls than a telemarketer. Opponents were given a green light to violate her landing space on jump shots, grab her arms on drives, and hack her at the rim with almost no consequences. The officiating seemed to treat the league's most valuable asset like an insignificant rookie walk-on. You have to ask the question, if Clark had received the same protective whistle that superstars in every other major sports league get, would she even be injured right now? The answer is almost certainly no. The league's failure to protect its most important asset has now backfired in the most spectacular and predictable way possible.
Should not be thrown back into any mix if she doesn't have significant practices under her belt before she goes into game speed. You can try to simulate game speed as much as you want in practice. You will never be able to. Game speed is game speed. There's also a lot more adrenaline, all of these different things pumping when you're playing in front of a sold out crowd that the Indiana Fever do every single night. If I'm their coach, she needs to practice for at minimum a week. At the minimum, she needs to be doing everything in practice for at least a week before you throw her back in the mix. Now you're going to throw her back in the mix when all of these teams are at peak condition.
This ratings disaster couldn't have come at a worse possible time. The WNBA is currently in the middle of negotiating its next massive media rights deal, the television contract that represents the financial lifeblood of the entire league for years to come. Network executives at ESPN, ABC, and CBS are watching this collapse with surgical precision. They aren't in the business of paying for a league that is only relevant when one specific player is on the court. When they see over 1 million viewers vanish the second Clark is in street clothes, their leverage in negotiations skyrockets. All the talk of a billion-dollar deal evaporates. They can now lowball the WNBA, armed with undeniable data that proves the product itself isn't what's valuable, only one of its players is. The league's failure to protect Caitlin Clark isn't just costing them viewers in the short term. It's a blunder that could cost them hundreds of millions of dollars and cripple their financial future. And here's the most frustrating part. The league has a deep roster of incredible skilled and marketable athletes who are titans of the sport. Stars like Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, and Sabrina Ionescu are world-class talents. Yet to the casual fan, they might as well be ghosts. The WNBA marketing machine has been so singularly focused on Clark that it has actively neglected the existing talent. They didn't just fail to promote others, they actively created a situation where if you're not Clark, you don't matter to the casual viewer. When Clark is out, there's no second wave of superstars to keep the new audience engaged. There is no backup plan. It has always been Caitlin Clark or bust. The ratings tell the story, but the growth illusion extends beyond TV. The league kept talking about record-breaking viewership, but they also focused heavily on ticket sales and merchandise. But where are those sales? Almost entirely tied to Clark. Her jerseys broke sales records. Her games sold out arenas. But if you look at the entire league, most teams still struggle to fill seats on a Tuesday night. The historic growth isn't a tide lifting all boats, it's a funnel channeling all attention and revenue directly to one player. When she's not playing, ticket sales tank, the merch stops moving, and the energy vanishes. You can't call it league-wide growth when it's 100% dependency on one asset. Every week, Clark is out. The WNBA is in a dangerous slide. Casual fans have short attention spans. They tuned in for the phenomenon, they're staying away now that the main event is cancelled, and they've already found other things to watch. The longer this goes on, the harder it is to break their new habits and get them to tune in again. The league's desperation plays like dangling fake return dates only erode trust. If fans believe they are being conned, they will stop tuning in, possibly for good. The danger isn't just this season, it's the future. If playoff viewership doesn't immediately spike back to May levels the moment she returns, it proves that the league has lost the casual viewer for good. The bubble might be bursting. Beyond the catastrophic ratings, there's a more fundamental problem. Without Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever aren't just less marketable. They are a fundamentally broken and unentertaining basketball team. Her presence on the court warped entire defensive schemes. Teams had to guard her from 30 feet out, which created massive open spaces for her teammates. Without that threat, the offense is a mess. The spacing collapses, defenses pack the paint, and the game grinds to a halt. Fans who tuned in to see Clark's fast-paced, high-scoring action are now being served a diet of slow, grinding half-court sets, isolation plays that go nowhere, and a festival of turnovers. The product itself is simply not fun to watch, and it gives casual viewers another powerful reason to change the channel and never come back. And then there's the elephant in the room that no one in the league wants to talk about, the dangerous irony hanging over this entire season. From the moment Clark was drafted, there was a visible and widely reported resentment from some veteran players who felt she was getting too much attention. The hyper-physicality she faced wasn't just tough defense, at times it felt personal. This league-wide failure to embrace its new superstar both culturally and through officiating has now come back to haunt everyone. The very players who may have felt overshadowed by Clark are now playing in a league whose value is plummeting without her. Their future salaries are directly tied to that TV deal that Clark's absence is now jeopardizing. They didn't just target a player, they may have sabotaged their own golden goose, and now the entire league is paying the price for that incredible short-sightedness. This isn't a story of growth, it's a story of dependency, and a cautionary tale for any league that puts all its eggs in one basket. The WNBA built its entire 2024 narrative on a foundation of sand, and a single injury just caused the tide to come in and wash it all away. The numbers don't lie, viewers are leaving, advertisers are nervous, and networks are sharpening their knives. Caitlin Clark didn't just bring millions of fans to the WNBA, she unknowingly pulled back the curtain to reveal a league that might not be able to stand on its own. Was her arrival the best thing that ever happened to the league, or did it just expose a fatal flaw that could lead to its eventual downfall?